After days of hectic deliberation, the opposition has narrowed down on Yashwant Sinha as its candidate for presidential polls. Yashwant Sinha, who recently resigned from the TMC, was former finance minister in Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. He has served as a civil servant for nearly 24 years and has been active in politics since 1984. This decision comes after three potential candidates, National Conference Chief Farooq Abdullah, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, Gopal Krishna Gandhi, and NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar refused to contest for presidential polls to be held on the 18th of July. Now, the question here is that after a very long process of discussion and deliberation, finally, the opposition parties have managed to get together to clinch a consensus candidate. But what does it say about opposition unity? Let me go across to Smita Gupta, senior journalist joining us here this evening. Smita, very good evening. Thanks for joining us. I would quickly like to play out first the inputs that we have on the story before I go across to you with questions. Let's listen in.
At a subsequent meeting held today, we are happy to announce that we have unanimously, I stress the word unanimously, chosen Shri Yashwant Sinha as the common candidate of the opposition parties for the presidential election, which will take place on the 18th of July 2022.
It's a matter of great pride and honor and gratification that someone of Yashwantji's stature has been nominated and has been accepted by every like-minded political parties. And everyone present in the meeting, either on the first meeting that was convened on the 15th of June or the second meeting that was convened today, was in consonance and in complete agreement with what we had proposed on the very first day.
Smita Gupta, former Union Minister Yashwant Sinha's name has been finalized by 13 opposition parties, the Congress, the TMC and the Samajwadi Party being chief among them. But what we witnessed during this process was that there were a series of meetings called, and these meetings become conspicuous by the absentees. So do you believe that, the entire process of selection of a candidate itself has given away a few things about opposition unity, or many would say disunity?
Well, there are about half a dozen opposition parties that were not part of this meeting, though they had been invited. That's the Aam Aadmi Party, the YSR Congress, the the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, yes, and the Biju Janata Dal. Now, if we take these parties, Biju Janata Dal has always maintained studiously all through. They have never changed their mind. They always maintain an equidistance between both the formations, the UPA and the NDA, the Congress-led and the other one. The other political parties, they have their problems with the Congress party, largely, so they stayed away. So in a sense, if the Congress is not able to persuade all these political parties to support their candidate, it's a given that the BJP-led NDA will be able to get its candidate through. Because if you look at the statistics, they have more than 48% already of the electoral college, that is the BJP-led NDA. Yes. So they are in a strong position. However, in a democracy, there has to, the opposition must put up a candidate, because you can't give a complete walkover to government. It is part of the democratic process, and they have picked somebody whose credentials are pretty good for the post of president. As you have yourself pointed out, Mr. Yashwant Sinha was an IAS officer. He's been in politics for, from 1984. He's been a foreign minister. He's been a finance minister. So therefore, he has the kind of background that would suit a Rashtrapati. And he is also somebody who's familiar with the Constitution, and as somebody I have known him personally since, I think, 89. He is also somebody who who is a presentable figure who will be able to discharge his duties as president. I mean, the opposition I don't think can do beyond this. Even 13 political
So
parties.
this was an opportunity then, Smita Gupta, for the opposition to display its unity, to come to a consensus. But that process took long enough for anybody to see the fissures within, isn't it? I mean, come to think about it, the regional stalwarts, you mentioned KCR, or take Mamata Banerjee, or take Arvind Kejriwal, these are leaders with national ambitions. And they refrained from joining this conglomerate. Now, in the overall picture, what do you make of that?
Part of this. The Trinamool is part of this.
Sorry, Trinamool is part of this. What I'm saying is the others refrain because they have their own prime ministerial ambitions or national ambitions, isn't it? Whether we talk about Arvind Kejriwal or KCR, whenever they would call meetings, the others would refrain. I'm talking about that process.
Yes, obviously. In fact, if you ask me, I'm surprised that even 13 political parties got together. I thought the number would be even smaller. So, but it's a given that the opposition is not united, and that is why, there is still, as yet, no challenge to the BJP. The day the opposition decides to unite and decides to have a proper leader, I'm not talking about the presidential election, things will be different. That's a given, absolutely. But
so 5 regional parties that are considered non-aligned, TRS, BJD, AAP, SAD and YSRCP stayed away. And that's a substantial group of parties here that we are talking about. So are we to believe that it's a given that the opposition's candidate will not make the cut as per the figures and as per the process that goes into choosing the ultimate winner?
Absolutely, because as I said at the outset, already the BJP NDA, even if the opposition is united, they already have 48% plus. And obviously the BJP is going to now look for support from among these 4 or 5 parties. Then we have to see what stand, because that is going to be a tricky issue. I mean, is Mr. Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party going to come out and support the BJP candidate? Because that also has, implications for Mr. Kejriwal's politics henceforth.
Yes.
In Telangana, where the BJP is growing, will Mr. KCR be able to come out and support the BJP candidate, because it has implications for his future? They didn't join this grouping because they don't want to be seen on the same platform as the Congress.
Yes, absolutely. So that grouping itself makes news, and that grouping is something that, of course, gives away what is the kind of opposition unity you have at the moment. That is one big takeaway from what I gather from what you said. Let's look at the other side now. What are the probables that you think can come in from the side of the BJP?
Well, I hear that there has been a meeting with the Vice President, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu. I mean, in fact, if you ask me, that should have been the most likely candidate. Mr. Venkaiah Naidu has had a very, very long innings in the BJP in all positions, as president of the party, as a union minister. And he was known also to be close to Mr. Modi in the past. He has helped Mr. Modi in his political career as well, along with the late Mr. Arun Jaitley. However, there have been other names that have been doing the rounds. And since the BJP has not announced it, people have mentioned the name of Ms. Murmu, and they have mentioned Durga Murmu and Arif Mohammad Khan. So it depends on what card the BJP wishes to play. I mean, if it plays safe, it will go along with Venkaiah Naidu, who would be, I would say, a very safe presidential candidate in the sense because of his long years of experience, working closely together with Mr. Modi in the past, both in the party as well as in government. But, the BJP may wish to send out some other signal that it wants to send out an appeal to the tribals and make Ms. Murmu the candidate. It has an election coming up in Gujarat where tribals form a substantial part of the population. It may wish to promote Mr. Arif Mohammad Khan now that it doesn't have a single Muslim minister. I mean, Mr. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi was not renominated to the Rajya Sabha. That send out some kind of message worldwide especially in the following what happened after Nupur Sharma, BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma's comments on the Prophet and the displeasure shown by a majority of Muslim nations in the world.
But Smita Gupta, if you recall what happened last time, you know, the name of Ramnath Kovind came in as a complete surprise. So there could be a surprise in the pack as well. Let's not rule that out.
They may be, you know, I mean, we may see a wild card suddenly emerging. So as I said, it depends on what the BJP thinks you know, what card it wishes to place ahead of the elections that are coming up this year, next year, as well as the general elections, which are barely 2 years away now.
Yes, so that's what I wanted to come to, the larger messaging, both for the opposition and for the ruling NDA. What would it be? Because this is coming, like you mentioned, at an opportune moment. There are a lot of political developments that you are saying may be factored in. But what will be the biggest factor? What will be the biggest factor for the NDA to actually decide on the presidential candidate? Because we know that the BJP never loses an opportunity to send out a message. They did so with Ramnath Kovind. They're likely to do that again, isn't it?
Yeah, in that sense, if they're trying to focus, say, on Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, then, you know, maybe Mr. Venkaiah Naidu may come in handy because, you know, that will force both the TRS. It will be embarrassing for the TRS and for YSR not to vote for somebody from their region. Because if you recall, when Pratibha Patil was the Congress candidate, the Shiv Sena at that time wasn't part of, you know, was in the other camp, came out and voted for Pratibha Patil, saying there was a matter of Maharashtrian pride for them.
Yes.
So the factors will include not only elections, but who is likely to pull in more votes, you know. Yes. So both these considerations will be on the table when the BJP finally takes a call on who the candidate will be. And perhaps we don't know behind the scenes, maybe there is already there's some conversations happening that we are unaware of at this stage.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, let's tell our viewers here that Ramnath Kovind would serve as the President of India till the 24th of July, 2022. In fact, the Election Commission has already announced the poll to find the successor will be held on the 18th of July. 4,809 members, including MPs and MLAs of the Electoral College, will elect the 16th President of India. And Smita Gupta, thank you very much for giving us a clear understanding of how the presidential race is likely to go. We will keep a close watch of the developments. Thanks for joining us. So another, of course, important element here is that BJP leaders Amit Shah and JP Nadda held a meeting at the latter's house today. Post that meeting, both of them went to meet Vice President Venkaiah Naidu at his house in Delhi. No decision has been taken as of this moment on NDA's candidate.